Hello everyone, welcome back to the next episode of the Road to Feed the Master series. This is the very nicely looking episode number 88, in which I will cover a very nice and long analysis of the round number 6 from the Prague Open. Let's see it. In round number 6 I was playing a lower rated opponent, even though I had 4 points out of 5 games, but 2100 rating is a respectable one. I started that one when I started the Road to Feed the Master series, right? So a good player, I would say. However, I would say that he was a one-dimensional guy, meaning that after e4 he was always playing Caro-Kann, after d4 some Slav, semi-Slav variations. So since he played similar positions and openings after both e4 and d4, I wanted to get him into the zone in which he will not be so familiar with. Therefore, I opted for c4. And c4 is not the move that you see that often from me, but as you can tell, I try to, squeeze in some other moves than e4 too. After c4, I expected what happened, meaning e6 and then d5. In here, I chose e3 move, solidifying the pawn, not allowing d4 to happen, and expecting my opponent to develop not like in the Slavs, because without the bishop being developed it's rather unusual, but through either c5 or b6, bishop b7 kind of scenario. Firstly though, he started with knight f6, b3, reasonable stuff, and in here black has a choice, and he somewhat surprised me, unfortunately, because he played bishop d6. In the database, I saw only the games with bishop e7, and you may not remember it, but I do. One of the first tournaments I've played during recording the Road to Feed the Master series was from Alicante, no, sorry, from the Roquetas de Mar in Spain in January last year, where I won convincingly, crushingly within 20 moves in this type of scenario exactly, in the bishop e7 variation. You may think that bishop d6 is not that big of a difference, but I will explain it why it is and why it basically disrupted all my idea for the game. On top of that, it was my mistake in terms of the preparation, that I simply did not include it into my preparation, because I should have done that really, as bishop e7, bishop d6 is also a very natural looking move. It covers the e5 square. This is the most important difference, because once I've played bishop b2, knight c3 and generally developed in a way I did, you will see in a second that after further moves of rook e8, rook c1, a6, d4, b6, I'm kind of skipping the specific move order because it always leads to basically the very same position. I believe this exact position was achieved only a handful of times in the Grandmasters and Masters games, but the one that we had after bishop d3, bishop b7 takes was achieved hundreds of times. So it's all about the change in the move order. And my point is that after castle knight b to d7, we basically got the position that I had in my preparation, that I had in the game I referred to from Spain, but with one difference: bishop was on e7 then. And then my idea was very simple: just play knight e5, try to solidify it furthermore with f4, try to base your overall play on this active knights, the space advantage in the center, the closeness of the center, allowing to, let's say, start some kingside activity initiative. As of now, I don't have that. This bishop additionally covers the e5 square, and also it uncovers the rook, also covering the e5 square, so knight e5 jump is not there. And if so, what is there? And this is the problem. I did not know what is the idea in here for white. Knight e5 was taken away from me, and any idea that I was now contemplating was basically underwhelming for me. Not that great, not that effective, not that easy to perform anyway. What am I supposed to do? Yeah, I found it really hard to find the idea. Apparently I was playing as I was supposed to, but still it's not the game and the idea that I wanted to execute. So what's the idea? In here I tried to evaluate the position as a whole, trying to find a hole, let's say, in the opponent's position strategically, and I found that knight on f5 would look nice, because it might be somewhat hard, or at least not hard, but detrimental to kick it away with g6. Therefore, knight e2 was the move I chose, with the idea of planting into g3 later to f5. Also, I'm opening up the c file, and since I am unable to jump to e5 straight away, maybe I will also be able to do so since my bishop has opened too. So knight e2 overall seems natural. My opponent played queen e7, even furthermore inviting me to execute the plan, but now g6 is obviously incoming, and the problem for me is that it's not really that detrimental to the opponent's position. He covered the square, yes, he uncovered the dark squares, but like, how am I going to get them, right? Like, this bishop is completely locked behind the pawn. So yeah, all in all, I would say that it's clear that opponent has equaled the game. So far still, even though we are in February, basically in March, and over 1 month passed by, I still did not find a good, let's say, continuation against this bishop d6 setup. I believe that it's superior to the one with bishop e7 for black. For white, I need to figure out other plan, because even though we are still in the fury, let's say, I don't like it. Objectively and practically, black has equalized, and yeah, what can I do? I was trying to, think of weaknesses that my opponent has in the position. I found that there are none. And the only pawns that I am looking at is this one and this one. So even though the chances of me taking them are slim, just pressurizing them maybe makes sense, because it would tie up the black pieces to them. So I chose queen e2 to hit this pawn, and then tried to double stack my rooks on the c file to hit this pawn and somewhat coordinate myself. My opponent chose h5 move. At first I did not know what is it about. I felt like my opponent is simply saying, okay, you wait, I wait, nothing happens. But after I chose rook c2, he jumped to e4, which was obviously expected, but after rook f2 c1, he just continued pushing. I was like, alright, so not only he is like waiting, he actually is taking over the initiative, right? So, alright, let's see how it goes. I chose knight f1, since the rook has gone away, f1 square is alright. h3, so till the end, h-pawn was pushed. That's alright. In here I played g3, which funnily enough is, by the computer, has the etiquette of being inaccurate, because apparently I was supposed to take on h3. To be honest, such idea came through my mind a little bit, because I knew that straight away is quite hard for the opponent to attack the pawn. And on top of that, if I push h4, the knight solidifies the pawn. Maybe I'm actually fine. Maybe later on the knight will indeed jump back to g4, perform h5, knight f5 and whatever. But it seemed so unnatural still, not human, let's say, that I quite fast actually decided to not take. I chose simply g3, thinking that this h-pawn will not pay that big of a, let's say, attention and deal in the game. However, it was very different. So stay tuned for the later stages of the game. In here, my opponent fought for, I believe, over half an hour, or maybe just under it. And he played crazy move c6. Obviously it's not crazy, it's passive, it's not doing much. Like, I could not comprehend how in the world can you and would you spend half an hour thinking and play such a move, such a passive one, such a, like, yeah, I'm running out of words like to describe it. Completely unexpected to see such move after such a long thought process. For me, it was very obvious that c5 is the way to go, objectively the best, practically putting pressure. If it was a blitz game, I would play it instantly. If it was a classical game, I guess 10 minutes would be enough. My opponent spent half an hour and he played c6. Why? I don't know. Maybe he disliked something about this particular move and position, but in here already I was debating, how can I continue? Should I take? Should I leave it as it is? Because then I might be under some b5, c4 threats. Should I go for the exchanges then? Because I am what, like worse already? Or am I not worse yet? So maybe I should not go for the exchanges because I'm equal, so why would I do it if I want to win the game, etc, etc, etc. So not only having this dialogue with myself, but also then I would have to calculate plenty of stuff because each decision, should I take or not to take, differs quite a lot in terms of how the position will resolve, what structure we will get, what type of dynamics, and so on, so on. So c5, practically speaking, was very obvious to me. I was trying to think of what to do later on during opponent's time, but he played c6, and I was like, what is even that? But okay, his problem, I guess. I believe this was the crucial point for him to take over the initiative, and he did not pursue it, so I was okay. However, since I am given a chance, I need to think of some way of playing the game out as I would like to, as I need to, right? So the question is how to do it. And I established the fact that this knight annoys me quite a lot. It's not doing particularly much, it's just standing right there in the center. And I, to be honest, would like to have the quite opposite knight on e5, and I am unable to do it since I have very little protection to the square while the square is attacked very, very much. So I have decided that since I am unable to add further pieces to protect the e5 square, I might do so with the pawn. So I played strangely looking move knight h4, but as for now, especially, knight there is feeling okay. G5 obviously makes no sense, so the knight as of now is just staying there, and after my opponent's move knight d to f6, I played f3, knight g5, f4, knight e4, and I went back with the knight. So it took me kind of a while, really, 4 moves to just transpose the position pawn from f2 went to f4, so quite a lot of moves, but thankfully the dynamic of the position allowed me to do that, and on top of that I would have finally gotten myself a chance to get there to the e5 square 10 moves later than I initially wanted to, but you know, I will take it anyway if that's the best I can do. And on top of that, I felt like my opponent also did not know how to navigate this position because, as I've said, c5 there a few moves back was crucial. In here without c5, I am struggling with the idea and plan what to do. He is struggling too. So yeah. He chose knight g4. I was not sure really why, because after knight e5 that I chose anyway, taking on e5 with the knight seemed like a big mistake for me. In my eyes, I mean from his perspective, because I can take with either pawn actually. I believe which I wanted to take. I believe I wanted to take fe and then take on e4 and then maybe hit the pawns or something, because once the pawns of the opponent are so much overextended, I can try to simply attack them, and this knight has really plenty of difficulties jumping back. So why was the knight g4 played? I did not know until I knew, because my opponent exchanged on e5 but with the bishop, and after d5 he played knight g to f2, and I was like, wait, where is this knight going, you know? Is it going to checkmate me or what? So kind of strange. I would rather see this knight on c5, so I completely did not understand why in the world the opponent would go here, and there, if he could have maybe chosen something completely different and then just with one move achieve the same thing, meaning the knight would protect each other as they do there, right? But on c5 it seems also like more naturally placed, hitting my bishop to like, yeah, I couldn't figure out what happened there. On top of that, I knew that once the exchanges will be executed, once they will be done and over with, I should be okay, because I will then maintain what I had best in my position, meaning double stack rooks, some kind of the space advantage. This pawn is overextended and in the endgame should be a weakness, if anything. And on the other hand, my opponent was dominating me in terms of the minor pieces, right? And now they are mostly gone. So yeah, I was like, okay, let's continue exchanging. I played knight d2. He took my bishop. He took my knight, and I was like all for it, right? In here, I thought I am really not like on the verge of winning, but very close to it, practically speaking, because even though you may say, all right, opposite colored bishops, yet again, as in the analysis of the previous round, you know, my heavy pieces held more coordination, more activity and whatnot. So rook f1 was played with the idea of pushing f5. My opponent therefore played queen f5. And this is the moment in which the, let's say, engine, the stockfish can fool you, because it tells you to take on f5. For me, it was really a natural way of playing to, in a position where we have the activity, somewhat better position due to the factors I mentioned earlier, to just exchange the queens and go into the opposite colored bishop's endgame and like what to do there. I'm not sure, right? So computer might take it. Stockfish 18 against Stockfish 17 will win such a game within like 110 moves after a tremendous grind in the endgame, because in here, depending on the depth and source, let's say it's plus 0.3, plus 0.5 or whatever. But for me as a human, first of all, I missed the idea that after fg, bishop c8, I didn't know how to proceed, to be honest, because I felt like if this happens, then I'm fine because I sacrificed a pawn, but I might be able to just simply take it back, then take this one. King is somewhat a bad one, my pawns are great. Yes, I like this position, but after bishop c8, I didn't know how to follow it up, because taking would just make this bishop much more active, and all of a sudden now I'm in the bigger trouble than my opponent. And if I close down the position, how am I going to win this, right? Yes, I can maybe go for this pawn, but it's perhaps not enough. Apparently rook c1 in here was useful, because after this I, at least for a split of a second, am endangering the pawn on c6. Therefore the bishop would be unable to go to e6, and counterintuitively, after opponent would have protected the pawn, I can play e6, basically sacrificing the pawn so that my bishop gets opened, and then once I will at some point in the game maneuver my rook onto the h file, maybe I will do something out of it. But giving away the pawn, opening up the way to the other, I mean, it's all computer like human wise you would not make such a decision at this point, then such a move at the later stage, whatever. And why I am explaining this to you guys, because as I've said, sometimes the engine can fool you, especially when you do like quick review, especially in an endgame. And also because when my student asked me like, why didn't you exchange the queens, it was plus 0 point something something, it was obvious. And I was like, but try to explain it to me in the human way, right? Like why would this choice be better than the other one? How would you then later on continue the idea, the trying to win the game? How would you do it? He didn't know. So yeah, that's about it. For all of those reasons, I just went back with the queen to e2, maybe setting up something like it. But after c5, it was clear to me that maybe, on the other hand, it would be a little bit too much, even though g4 is a objectively okay move. I decided to start with queen f4 to not allow this queen in here, and maybe then now think of g4. My opponent played queen e4, and I was like, what is going on? I can now take, and when we compare this position to that one but big difference is in here there is no single open file, which I need when I want to create some counterplay, or not really counterplay, some play, some initiative going. In here there is one, and it has just opened, and it's the d file that I have control over, that I can hit the bishop, the pawn with. I can try to now maybe undermine the position with e6 pawn sacrifice. I can double stack the rooks. All of a sudden, it's okay. Funnily enough, it's 0.00. Even black has an edge, according to computer. How in the world is that possible? I have no idea. On top of that, I need to tell you guys that the frustration that is in the thumbnail, or rather the title, was because of the fact that I felt like I out-tricked myself in the opening preparation. Then during the middle game, my opponent showed nothing, because this h-pawn push felt like it was a preparation for him. So yes, he may have be better prepared than myself. But then when he had the critical moment, he played c6, he chickened out, he did not play c5. On top of that, later on, I got somewhat lost in terms of what to do, but he seemed even even more like hopeless and directionless, didn't know what to do. And then he performed all of these exchanges that favored me. And in here, I'm still not better, even though I have all the activity, space, file control, diagonal control, hitting the weaknesses. Like, how is this possible? Frustrating very much. On top of that, 30-second move, 8 move until time control. My opponent has less than 5 moves. Any kind of try to continue protecting the pawn would be hopeless. Like b5, I don't care. I can maybe even push like this, or I can try to push like this, or I can maybe think of that, or I can think of that. Every decision is on my hands, let's say. I am the one in charge. My opponent played bishop c8. To me, it was the move out of its world. Apparently, it's the best by a country mile. Why? Because my opponent is giving up this b6 pawn so that he can reroute the bishop to e6 and attack the pawns with the idea that either one or ideally both pawns will be exchanged. So every pawn from here will disappear. And then, even though he has one less pawn, he claims that he should be better. I mean, not better. He should be surviving there on the king side. And I was like, is this a possibility? Is this how can you play the game of chess? I was like, what is going on? I was really confused, especially since only afterwards I checked that he is playing like an engine, and with so little time, such unique decisions. I was like, I don't know what happened. Anyway, I took a pawn. I felt great. But I lost the control over the d file, so I took over it once more with the other rook. He played rook a to c8, and here I thought about how to continue the position because I don't want to allow all those exchanges, and after rook a6, c4, this would perhaps be exactly the scenario. If I take, he take with the rook, plays rook c2, hitting me there and there and there, threatening here. So I guess it would not be enough for me to claim any advantage of any kind, because even after rook d2, he can try to double stack the rooks and he would be entering the c file anyway. For that reason, I decided, okay, at this very moment, my goal is to stop him from entering my second rank. So I need to block A, B, C, and D files. Not that easy, apparently. Yes, I have control over the D file and the B file, therefore A and C are the biggest problems of mine, but I can try to resolve both at the same time with the bishop c3 move, because I am kind of stopping a pawn from pushing, and after c4, b4 happens, so this is closed, this is under my control, this is under my control, this is closed, I am fine, right? Apparently after bishop c3, a5 is possible anyway. My opponent is simply just giving me away yet another pawn, because after I take, he goes back. After he goes back, I cannot go back because my pawn is lost, and then I have problems, so I need to protect. And at first, to be honest, when I calculated, I was afraid of such move, which does not work for two reasons. Why I would have taken the pawn. Second one, I am hitting the bishop. So as of now, it's blurry whether or not I thought about bishop d7 here or there, but still also in here it does not work. What works though is that opponent can try to push c4 as previously mentioned, and even though I play b4, c3, like a3, yes, I got hold of this additional pawn of mine, but those pieces are looking terrible. Without the move, uncoordinated, misplaced, this is a passer much more dangerous than two of mine. And like, yeah, practically speaking, I am on the verge of collapsing, to be honest, because it's how badly practically is to continue this position. So going back to this moment, a5 also caught me by surprise. I was like, how is he finding these moves, you know? And since a4 in itself also aims at playing c4, because after b4 there is exchange, or a4 trying to hit the pawns, I decided that I need to stop both. So I played a4, sorry, to stop this move. And after c4, I found that I can play b4 anyway, because after takes, I got kind of what I wanted. B file under my control, A file under my control, C file closed, A file closed and protected. Great. What's the problem though is that as of now, I don't have enough resources to push this position further to the win because all my pieces are, you know, focused on blocking everything. And I felt like I'm just on the verge of like getting there because after rook a1, I will be trying to now change my way of like staying now, placement of the pieces so that the rook now protects the a pawn that can be thanks to this fact pushed. My bishop will close the d file, so a file is fine, d file is fine, this is still the pawn, there is still the rook, I should be okay. Ideally speaking, I would play it here, 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 here. Everything is blocked, protected, connected. This pawn will win me the game, hopefully. This is the move 39. My opponent attempted rook d8. I closed it down. And on the move number 40, while having 5 seconds on the clock, while for 1000% being unable to calculate it till the end, unable to tell is it good or bad, my opponent played c3 that you saw on the thumbnail, saying, okay, take my pawn, I want the activity, which is practically speaking very good decision. But how can you make such decision with 5 seconds on the clock? I was not sure whether I am frustrated, shocked, angry, in like, oh, what my opponent is like doing. I didn't know what to feel exactly. I was kind of playing towards this very moment because I could not believe that my opponent would be playing such a move on move number 40 right at the time control, but he did that. Obviously, once he did that, I am taking the pawn. Once I took the pawn, obviously he will attack the bishop. Once my bishop is attacked, obviously I will just go away with it. Rook c2 happened, and now the thinking process starts. The longer I fought, the more I knew and was aware of the fact that I am the one in trouble, unfortunately, because yes, I have two more pawns. Yes, my a pawn is a passer outside, one protected, one. Everything is set perfectly, but this annoying pawn kills my dream of winning the game, apparently. So this h-pawn push was indeed working, indeed helped a lot in terms of what is opponent willing to and able to achieve. What are my problems? If I would like to resolve the issue of having black rook on the second rank and just try to exchange it, okay, exchange it is. The other rook says hello. Doesn't work. So if I want to do it, I had to play rook a to b1 so that the rooks would be protecting each other, and after any exchange I would be able to exchange back with the rook too. The problem with that solution though is that after rook d to c8, if I would now try to attempt rook b2, opponent can say, okay, I will just stay like this and not do much. Or he can give me a check. If I go up with the king already, he can take and plant the rook anyway. If I will exchange, I needed to evaluate what happens now, because apparently this pawn might be even more endangering than mine. So yeah, not that easy to deal with those rooks. Thankfully though, rook b8 was possible, trying to maybe deflect the rook, maybe overload it in a sense that it cannot both attack and protect, and if it is protecting mostly, then it would have to go back so that it will allow me to go to the second rank. But my opponent, I believe in here, had a opportunity to just take and go there anyway, because really at this point, if I give a check here once more, I didn't know what to think of this scenario and position. I kind of wanted that to happen because thanks to the fact that my rook is protected, I can play like this, and after this, I felt like this pawn would be winning me an endgame. But at this point, after bishop g4, it's not that clear, because my opponent, if let's say I push here, can, at least that's what I thought, play a move like this, here. No, wait, I'm in here, I'm winning. I was thinking about the position where where the bishop actually holds the pawn. So maybe not bishop f3 though. Maybe here, here, here. But in here I also thought that I have the chances. So, Okay, g4, yes, I wanted that. Okay, maybe it was good actually. Sorry for being a little bit chaotic in here, but the variations are kind of falling into each other's arms because they are so similar one to the other, because there were plenty of such possibilities to exchange one pair of rooks. So what was the move order? Maybe like this, so that after that, that, and that, here, does it change anything? If I take the g4 pawn, is it the same position? Yes, it's the same. Oh, okay. Here, 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 here. Now there, the bishop cannot be taken because this pawn is going away. And if this pawn wants to go away, now bishop c8, and it's holding both here and there. Okay, this was my idea, I believe, from the distance. So yeah, as you can tell, pretty similar stuff, but only one move change in the move order and tempos, and this is it. This allows black additional defense. Anyway, my opponent in here played a move after he started to shake his head. Once more, making me frustrated with the fact that he's still okay, he's still holding on, because he gave me a check. I went into the corner and like, why did you give me a check, right? What was that about, to be honest? I didn't know, because if he now chooses, I don't know, some random move, I can exchange, and now this rook is simply stuck. And now finally I can exchange them, right? And if he goes back to c2, I mean, I can go back to draw, but I wanted to take over the initiative because I can take now, and after rook goes to c8, I can now start pushing, and pushing, and pushing, and pushing. And if the bishop takes, oh, okay, it happened in the game. I was like, what I was thinking in here. If the bishop takes, I played here. He gave me a check, I went back, he went back, and I thought, okay, I need to find some idea what to do. And I found one which is not good. It makes my life much harder, on the verge of losing, unfortunately. But if you think about it, I cannot do much in terms of my king's placement because it is stuck connected to the pawn defense. If I will try to just push the pawn, not only does my opponent can perhaps simply play like this, stop it, and that's that, but also, even if not, he would have ideas like that, and with bishop on a6 it's working even better maybe. So I have a variations like, okay, let's put it like that, here, 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 and then all of a sudden, bam, bishop e2, a6, bishop f3. Am I losing? Thankfully not. Just thanks to the one and only move rook f1, so that if the rook goes away somewhere with the, let's say, discovery attack, it doesn't do much, right? And if it goes to f2 trying to attack my king and the rook is so close to the king that I can just simply protect it, which would not be possible if my rook was far away. And if I, let's say, played here, this is the checkmate, obviously, but with the rook on f1, this would not be the checkmate because I can take and then promote, actually. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. I mean, after rook f3, I would have to play king g1, stopping every square from the rook. So yeah, even though the position looks like it's completely dry and equal, such tricks exist. And the problem is that I am on the wrong end of it. No, it's not me creating those threats. It's not me that is willing to checkmate. I am the one nearly checkmated, and it's not an easy position and situation to be in, to be honest. So I decided that I would like to cut off at least this diagonal for the bishop, and I chose e6. Because I felt like if my opponent takes with the bishop, I can check. If he exchanges the rook, oh, amazing. If he goes back with the bishop, king g1 now is much better than previously ever, because after this I can play finally king f1. I don't care about the pawn because then there would be checkmate. And if so, this check makes no sense. And if so, if my opponent wants to escape from the checkmate pattern with some either king move or let's say pawn move, finally I would have rook b2. Check, here, check, here, here, here. Oh wait, is it also bad? Yeah, it's also bad. I was thinking only about king f8, I guess. But then still, even if king f8 would have happened, it would be the same scenario like previously, right? Here, 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 here again. Here, here. So yeah, I guess there was really nothing there, but I really wanted to create something out of nothing and it got me to nothing. So yeah, and on top of that, unfortunately, f takes e6 might happen. So yes, I closed down this diagonal, but I opened up a little bit of breathing space to the king, and the bishop can enter this f3 square, this route as a whole, through this way, and it's problematic for me. After a5, bishop a6, I am the one without the moves. I am the one without the moves, because now if I go king h1, king g1, after check here and there, I am in the worst position than previously and the worst situation. Let me just think why. There was some reason for it. Oh yeah, because then previously the pawn was there and I could have checkmated the opponent, so he had to waste some more tempo, and this one tempo is decisive in a sense in here, I guess. In here, there is no checkmate. After I give him a check, he can just try to escape them all, and then after bishop f3, I'm in a big trouble. So king cannot move, it's stuck. Bishop, I don't know where would it go and what for would it go. Rook is kind of glued to the first rank. Pawn is blocked. Like all of a sudden I gave the pawn away, and it's not about the material, but as I've said, placement for the king. What can I do? What can I do is bait my opponent, as I usually like to do when struggling. So I baited my opponent into thinking that I am playing g4 rather desperately than with some tricks behind it, but I had some trick. I evaluated that if he would just started going towards my a pawn so that the king is more or less on its radar and then tried to create something on my king, I would be in the big danger. That's why I wanted to push this g4 quite early on, because the bishop is still far away from the pawn of mine, so that I am provoking bishop e2, which happened, which was baited. My opponent was baited into playing it, because I knew that thanks to this bishop e2 move that is not correct one, I can play king g1. Since the second rank is closed, there is no check. My opponent is kind of happily taking the pawn, but I hope he was not that happy once he saw rook b2. And my point was that we saw plenty of those variations previously, but all of them were with the pawn on g3 still. Without it, I am great, because I don't care about my pawn being taken. I will just push the pawn. If he takes, I go here. Now the difference is that finally this paid off, closed out the diagonal for the bishop. On top of that, I gained tempo here and there, so my pawn is already on the 6th rank, not on the 4th like in the two variations that we saw where black has drawn easily, and now I'm winning. Finally, thankfully, right? But after bishop e2, king g1 here, my opponent exchanged. And I was even more euphoric, you know, outside passer on the edge of the board. How can I not win this? Well, I might not be able to win this because it's 0.00 evaluation. I mean, and even I would not be so frustrated. This is today's word, frustration. I would not be frustrated if I would see in my opponent's eyes that he was somewhat expecting it, calculating it, being aware of it. No, after g4, which happened when he was low on time already, even though after time control, he got baited into playing this and that rook b2, was not maybe full surprise, but only I saw in his eyes that with time ticking on his clock, he realized that something was wrong in here. He cannot really give me a check. So out of, like, I don't know if there was a desperation or just method of elimination that he knew that he cannot play anything else, he exchanged, not knowing if this is drawing position, because in here he kind of fought, but obviously there is one and only move to stop the pawn, so he played bishop e2. I attacked the bishop, I played here, king e1 happened. In here he used basically all his time till the end, only now realizing what is this position. Is it losing? Is it not losing? And it was not losing. So I was frustrated because by some miracle, by some chance, not being able to tell from the distance, my opponent was surviving this attack, this initiative, this problem, that problem throughout all the game because of luck or because of some other like instance and factor that I cannot, let's say, comprehend with my mind. But this is the truth. 0.00 evaluation, drawing position, this one and unfortunately lonely advantage of having the passer is not enough for me to win the game. If my opponent will find one idea, which is unfortunately not that hard to do, just run with the king towards the pawn in this way or the other. And he did just that. King f7, king d2, king e7, king c3, king d6, king d4, king c6, and somewhere in between, in the middle of this variation that I have just played out, I realized that even though this pawn is deflecting this king, allowing my king to enter here, there, try to attack the pawns, all of those pawns will be taken care of by the bishop, and I will be unable to win. Frustrating stuff. I will say it again. King e5, bishop e2. Opponent is giving me a choice, but it's not a choice really. Because if I take on e6, he just gives me a check. If I attack either of the pawns here or there, doesn't matter, he plays there. Everything is protecting each other. Maybe not this way because the pawn does not go backwards. And if so, he does not care about either of my other pawns because they cannot move. He just goes into the corner, waiting for a draw offer and acceptance, obviously, of his. And yeah, that's that. Like, I cannot do much more. I took on e4 so that at least my e-pawn is open and free to go. He attacked my pawn, I protected. He played bishop g4, king e5, king c6. So basically, he can dance around with the king or the bishop. And I knew it's a draw, but I still wanted to try out some fancy maneuver, let's say. So I went with king f6, king g5, king h4, king g3, king f3. So basically my king was there, went like this, all the way back, nearly, because my attempt was to, on the way, on this, and that square at all times attack either of the pawns of the opponent and land on the f3 square, allowing myself to play e4, trapping the bishop. But my opponent just simply went away, and that's that. I am unable to, let's say, duplicate my king for it to be standing both at the f3 square and, let's say, g3 square at the same time, so that when I would be on the g3 square, bishop would be forced to be on f5, and if I would be at the same time on the f3 square, I would be able to push e4, right? But yeah, I cannot duplicate my king, it's only one, and for that reason, bishop is holding all the weaknesses. And this is it. Opposite colored bishops now, unfortunately, yeah, don't allow me to win the game. Still, I was trying and fighting because if you think about it, I told you guys that e-pawn is open and free to go. I pushed it. The problem though is that when I push it, it needs to be protected, right? So the king has to be on either of those squares. So as you can tell, only one of them is close to the other pawn of the opponent. But if I would ever want to take it, then the pawn of mine would be also taken. So this pawn being a weakness also makes this position unwinnable, let's say. However, I tried one last trick, which was some random move, and after bishop b1, I felt like it's the worst positioning of the bishop. I chose f5, pawn breakthrough, trying to ask my opponent how is he going to take. Apparently all the options still work for him. However, I felt like after e takes f5, e5, I might have some chances because I have finally two passers that are not connected to each other and are in fact quite far away from each other. Objectively, unfortunately, it's still a draw. Practically, I had some chances or some hopes at least, but my opponent correctly chose g takes f5 to not allow me to create another passed pawn here in the center, but I went for the passed pawn here at the edge of the board. So I played king g3, he took king h3. So you may say, okay, you are basically nearly winning, right? Because you have two outside passers on the edge of the board. But the answer is obviously I am not winning due to the many reasons. And one of them, the simplest one that my opponent already showed me that he knows, is the fact that if you consider this position with the bishop and the pawn only, especially on the a file, meaning that the promotion square does not suit the bishop, it's a draw. So we can basically remove this and that from the board. It's a draw because the king can just go into the corner. Wait, it's a well-known endgame. If you don't know it, now you know it. Once you have the bishop and the pawn on the edge of the board, it's crucial to have a good square of promotion. If you don't have one, you will not win. My opponent knew it, so he just pushed e3, trying to first of all give me the pawn for that one. I obviously refused, but then he chose king a6, king b7, king a8, and we agreed to a draw. Why? Because he tells me my king will be there and my bishop will be always waiting for your pawn that will be pushed. This bishop will give himself up for the pawn, and then as I've said, this scenario does not allow me to win the game. So guys, after this one I was full of frustration because I felt like overall I was much better player. Only afterwards, once I talked to the coach, only afterwards, once I checked the game with the engine, only afterwards, once I slept and had some time to deal with my emotions, I kind of acknowledged the fact that even though it seemed like my opponent is indeed relying mostly on luck, in the end he played a decent enough game. In opening he might have an edge, to be honest, over me. In the middle game, even though he did not play it his best, in the time trouble, he indeed found best ideas to defend himself. And yes, perhaps there was some luck involved, but in the end, what can you do? At no point in the game actually I was winning ever, like objectively. So practically I was putting pressure onto my opponent. He lived with it, he survived, and that's that. So as frustrating as it is to draw a game like this, at least in my eyes, a draw is a draw. Half a point on the score sheet. One obviously more reason to be frustrated, as you may know from my previous analysis, is that out of the 6 rounds, because this is the 6th one, 5 of them I was paired with the lower rated opponent. So I thought that with a win with this one, I would be finally playing someone higher rated. For the second time, I would be giving myself a chance to win against a better player, get more of those rating points to get me to the FIDE Master title, right? And with a draw with white pieces, I knew that the next day I would be playing black with yet another 2100 guy with the win on demand on written on my forehead. So yeah, this was a tough evening, tough afternoon for me. I have to admit that, but the tournament did not finish, right? And the analysis will not finish either. I would like to invite you to the analysis of the next round for tomorrow. And as for this one, that's it. I hope that you are still here, and if so, thank you very much for watching. We'll see each other shortly. Thank you and bye bye.